Is the U.S. a little bit limited? Yeah, I think we knew that going into this tournament. Is their fitness a little bit more limited than we thought? Also, yes. But did the U.S. also kind of look like they could do something in this tournament? Also, yes. All right. Hello, everybody, to a special YouTube edition of the Late Sub. Olympic edition. First official Olympic edition of the Late Sub. We have started. The U.S. has begun their Olympic soccer campaign. They do defeat Zambia 3-0 here on Thursday, July 25th. Now, if my voice sounds a little tired, if my brain is a little slow, it's because I've been watching soccer for like the last 7 straight hours. Started the whole, Olympic soccer is something else, right? They do the entire slate in one day. There were 12 teams playing a game today. There were 6 games, 3 different time slots, 2 games at a time, trying to double screen it, keep an eye on everything. But we're going to focus on the United States, of course, because they are the headliners here. So they do have a nice, strong start to their Olympic campaign, especially at the very, very beginning of this game. We're going to talk a little bit about what worked, a little bit about what didn't, what I was excited to see from the United States, what I think they could still work on in the future, and especially maybe what I probably imagine Emma Hayes is thinking after this first game. All speculative, of course, but here's kind of the tea leaves that I'm reading. So we're going to start with the opening lineup for the United States. So it's very, very similar to what we saw of the first 2 send-off games right before the Olympics began, with a couple slight changes, which we'll talk about in a second. So Alyssa Nair starts in goal. The defense is Crystal Dunn, Tierna Davidson, Naomi Girma, and Emily Fox. Midfield is Sam Coffey, Lindsay Horan, Rose Lavelle. Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman, and Mallory Swanson make up the attack. So as people, if you were watching those 2 send-off series games, very, very similar. The only actual quote-unquote official change was done at left back for Jenna Neiswanger, who did not start the second send-off game due to load management. Interested to see if maybe load management is code for carrying a small knock, because we got probably our first real obfuscation of the Emma Hayes era today. They did announce before the game was played that midfielder/forward Jaden Shaw would be missing the Olympic 18 for this particular match due to a leg injury. Now, if people might know, there was some confusion about this in the moment, which makes sense. It's a new rule. There is this new rule that alternates can join the game day squad for 1 game and still get pulled off it for a temporary replacement. So this does not mean that Shaw is necessarily out for the rest of the Olympic Games. She simply was not available today. Croy Bethune took her place in the Olympic 18. Now, people know this from the Andonovski era. They know it from the Ellis era. They know it from the Pia Sundhage era. Coaches are not always going to be completely forthcoming if they have a player who is maybe carrying a slight injury that day to day could impact their availability for the team. Probably everyone has seen the analysis of like, where is Jaden Shaw in the lead up to the Olympic Games? This feeling of like, oh my gosh, does Emma Hayes not rate Shaw? Is there an issue with the coach not necessarily knowing where she's best placed on the pitch? Why isn't she getting a lot of playing time? I think suddenly if a player picks up a slight knock the day before a game, that means they've been carrying something. And we've actually seen Shaw's production go down for the Wave this year as well. I just think that there's probably a little bit of something there for a young player, that they're trying to manage her minutes and not work her too hard. Hayes had said in her availability earlier this week that it was all just about, didn't want to overstimulate the starting 11, didn't want to move too many people in, too many people out, said that every single player was available when that was not the case. So, I'm smiling because, it's maybe that first moment of gamesmanship from Hayes that we're seeing, which you always expect from a coach of a job of this stature. But it does kind of keep digging into some of the issues that we've talked about with the United States over the last couple of weeks, which is that they're more injured and they're thinner than maybe they would like to be going into these games, right? They have Rose Lavelle, who is on a minutes restriction today. She was subbed off at halftime. They brought Lynn Williams in for Sophia Smith, and Williams looks a little bit rusty. She is someone who was added to the alternate list for the United States. She gets placed on the 18 because Katarina Macario cannot play at the Olympics. And then now Williams, who just hasn't been able to get on the pitch that much for Gotham recently due to kind of a lingering leg injury, looks a little rusty out there. Just thinner and thinner and thinner. You move Bethune into the Olympic 18, but that is a very, very new player. You don't know if it makes sense to just throw her out there just so soon after her first U.S. Women's National Team cap. I think a lot of this tournament for Emma Hayes is going to be roster management. And I think that not only informed the starting 11, for example, not putting Niswang or Ong because they wanted to have Dunn in that left back position, or the subbing patterns in this game. But I think if I had to guess, I'm going to give my big theory at the very, very beginning, because then we'll talk about the game sort of as it played out. My theory, based on everything that Hayes has said, and then also what she did today, which was sub very liberally at kind of the slightest mention perhaps of a player needing to be pulled, is that she's only had 2 camps with this team, right? The one that they are still in, counting as one of them. She is probably pretty confident that her starting 11 that she's had in the 2 send-off series friendlies, or even who she was really rotating in for the June friendlies, who she had play and start this game, understands the game plan, right? This front 3 of Rodman, Swanson, and Smith, they get it. They get the game plan. That midfield 3 of Haran, Lavelle, and Coffey, they get it, right? She feels very confident in her center back duo of Davidson and Gurma, and that faith was very much rewarded today. She feels confident that Emily Fox is going to be able to hold when she needs to and push forward when she needs to. And she feels comfortable swapping Dunn in and out, because Dunn has been playing left back for the United States for a long time. I think her confidence in her subs, not that in their technical ability, but just in time and in chemistry and in knowing the game plan as a group, probably a little bit less. We saw that play out in this game. The U.S. goes up 3-0 very early. They go up 3-0 in the first half hour. Rodman looks fantastic. Smith gets an assist. Swanson gets 2 goals. Really, really nice from the U.S. at the beginning. I even thought the interplay between them and Lavelle, I thought like Lizzie Haran had maybe the best first half for the U.S. that she's had in a while. Zambia didn't really step to her. She was placing really nice passes in behind. Her quality on the ball when she has a little bit of time cannot be denied. Hayes probably feels really good about that. She's very clear on who that team is that she wants starting, not only, the first game of the tournament, but probably the last game of the tournament. And obviously they would like that to be the gold medal game. Part of this Olympic process is getting used to the way that Hayes would like the team to play, right? And I think, as I said the last time we talked about the U.S., there's going to be this balance of preparing for the future, while also they're playing in an Olympics. They're going to want to win every single game that they possibly can. So what that meant for this game, it's interesting. It's like the 2 halves of over-relying on a starting 11, right? Where we saw this with Vlatko Andonovski in the past. We sometimes saw this with Jill Ellis, where if the faith is so great in the starting 11, and those are the players that you have tasked with executing your game plan and you trust them, sometimes that means that you rely on them too much, right? You keep them in the game too long. You don't make impact subs when things aren't working. You push them, you force them, you run them into the ground, and you say, well, we're just here for 2.5 weeks, and we're going to give all that we got, and we're going to ride as far as the starting 11 can get us. What Hayes did against Zambia was kind of the opposite. So again, the U.S. is flying. Zambia goes down a player after the first half hour. They're up 3 goals. They're playing really well. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is about to get way out of hand. This is about to be a U.S. women's national game of the past, right? Where it's going to be 5, 6, 7 goals on Zambia, which was frustrating because I know that Zambia can play a lot better than that. But instead, there's a little bit of a crunchy tackle on Sophia Smith. She goes down and she's holding her ankle. Hayes immediately calls for Williams. Immediately. This is like right before halftime. I don't even know if there was enough time to really evaluate if Smith could keep going. I think it was more just, okay, Smith went down. We're up 3 goals. We're up a player. We're pulling her, right? Lavelle gets pulled functionally 6 minutes later in terms of game time at the halfway mark. She gets replaced by Corbin Albert. And then they do a triple sub later in the second half to keep kind of managing those minutes, to pull those players. I think it's because Hayes knows that she would like to start probably just kind of the same group as much as possible, that she was over-focused on saving legs in this particular game. I think the U.S. still could have gotten 5, 6, 7 goals. There was an open header that Rodman missed in the second half. Swanson got herself into a really dangerous position in the second half as well. She did all the hard work of going through the defense and then just didn't quite land the shot. I saw Williams looked a little bit rusty. I'll be honest, I still think that when they bring Albert in to support the midfield and they sort of shift that midfield into making Haran the point of the midfield attack, I don't think it's as strong. I think that Albert is a very risk-averse player at this moment. She passes laterally a lot. She passes behind herself a lot. She can do really short passes with Haran. We did see some interplay there, but the bravery kind of gets lost when Albert comes onto the field, which again, as a backup, maybe isn't the worst thing in the world, but it definitely affected the US's ability to progress the ball in the second half of this game. Casey Kruger actually came in and I think was the best, she was like the greatest impact sub for the United States in the second half. She had one particular cross go in that Crystal Dunn just kind of barely missed at the back post. And then she had sort of this game-saving, not game-saving, but goal-saving perhaps tackle at the other end immediately after. I love Casey Kruger. I think she's a fantastic player, and I think that she showed exactly why she's on this team. She's like the perfect player you want to bring on if you're protecting a lead, not only because she's a very good defender, but she can also keep the other team's defense honest with the ability to send the ball in. So it's like good and bad, right? Is the US a little bit limited? Yeah, I think we knew that going into this tournament, even just in terms of what the ceiling is for this particular group for this particular year as they continued to build for 2027. Is their fitness a little bit more limited than we thought? Also, yes. Lavelle is not 100%. It doesn't seem like, at least in terms of like full match fitness. Shaw is not 100%. I'm beginning to question if Niswanger is 100%. And that now Hayes is sort of burdened with not overplaying other players to make up for some of those deficiencies. And certainly a player like Smith, I don't think the U.S. can afford to lose, right? So very conservative, pull her when she gets knocked. But did the U.S. also kind of look like they could do something in this tournament? Also, yes. When Rodman, Smith, and Swanson were out there together, the ball moved beautifully. They set Zambia on their heels, which was very important because their game plan from the very beginning was to absorb pressure, get the ball out quickly, and get it to their very technical, speedy forwards to test that U.S. back line, which, as we've discussed maybe a million times now, is not particularly pacey. Their midfield is also not particularly pacey with Coffey and with Haran. Zambia tried to test that. I think they actually did a really nice job at the beginning of the game before that opening goal of again, you absorb the pressure, you get the ball to your goalkeeper sends it out, you try to move very quickly on the wings, make the defense pay. The U.S., at the beginning of the game, the attack does their job, which is to change the game state so that the defense is given a little bit of a cushion. They do that with the quick succession goals, 1, 2, 3. Could have gotten, you force them into a denial of his goal scoring opportunity red, right? All of that makes life easier on your defense. In the second half, when Hayes was being a little bit more conservative with the attack, was making those subbing patterns, was kind of saving people maybe for the next game, the defense did their job. That's where I think Zambia being down to 10 players really made the biggest impact. Obviously, the U.S. was not able to score any more goals in the second half, but you had Barbara Banda, you had Rachel Kundananji, who were trying to push. They were trying to move fast. They were trying to make the U.S. pay. And there were quite a few times actually in the second half where they got position on the U.S. back line. Either the shot was maybe taken from distance when it didn't need to be, or the U.S. did a nice job of sort of that help defense or that recovery defense. I had said after the send-off series games between Mexico and Costa Rica that obviously I thought that the U.S. defense was very sturdy. They did not give up a single goal in those two games, but they were not necessarily stretched or tested maybe the way that I thought they were going to be in the Olympics. And going down a player, I do think it limited Zambia's ability to test the U.S. maybe the way they could have if they had 11 in the second half, just because Banda and Kundananji were so tired and didn't always make the exact right shot, even when they had gotten position, or they were able to slow them down enough so that the help defense could come in and aid them. But Girma played really, really well in that second half as, again, Zambia kept chasing for goal differential, kept chasing for an opening goal. I thought Davidson did a nice job of positioning. She is not the paciest player, but she is really good at cutting the angle down to give her teammates time to catch up. Nair was not super tested, but I think that's important to have a goalie who can, swat things down, smother things when you're getting those shots from distance. And then Casey Kruger, again, I think when she came in, she really, really helped. That allowed Dunn actually to get involved in the attack a little bit more, which was important with some of those attacking subs. So when you're looking at the U.S. as a whole, and I say, like, I went back and I was like, there are some things that are limited, but the issues are being elevated by the way the team is playing. Attack played really well in the first 30 minutes. The defense played really well in the second half. 3-0 win. Wrap it up, go play Germany this weekend. So I think that U.S. fans should feel good about this. And I think it's actually just very difficult for me to tell if this is the classic issue of goals drying up for the United States. I think that, again, there is this expectation that when they put a team on their heels, they keep pushing. Julie Foudy actually kept saying this on the broadcast, and I understand where she's coming from with that as a former 1999er of, like, when you get them 3-0, don't don't hold up. Don't take your foot off the pedal. Keep going. Keep pushing. Never let the mindset enter your brain that a certain result is just okay. But again, I think Hayes would counter that with, yeah, but we have to get through all these other games. And I want to have a really steady starting 11, and this is the only way to do that. So did the goals dry up? Yes. Were there opportunities left on the table? Yes. Did Zambia maybe squander some things because of that dog so red in the second half? Yes. Could this have gone another way? Absolutely. But the attack stepped up at the beginning and the defense stepped up at the end. And I think that is what people can hold on to as the big positive out of this one. So they have a very different opponent this weekend in Germany, who also won 3-0 against Australia today. Germany looked good. It was not an amazing showing from Australia. I do have to say that. They give up 2 weak set piece goals. The third goal is even weaker. Australia just did not look up for it today. So it's a little bit hard to gauge exactly where Germany elevated themselves versus just sort of like taking the game that was in front of them. But this is ostensibly at this point the game for first in the group. If you win this game, you're set up real well to get first in Group B. So I would expect a very similar starting 11 because Hayes, like I said, baked that in to the way that they played this game. Hopefully Smith will be okay. Hopefully there'll be some updates soon on how she's feeling coming out of the game, how Lavelle is doing, how Jaden Shaw is doing, what the expectations are for who's going to be able to start in that game. But the U.S., like I said this in last episode, which is, I know that it feels kind of lame for the United States women's national team, who have been known kind of as the world crushers, to take this one game at a time. But the Olympics is that kind of a tournament. And you get this one, you wrap it up, you get out healthy, you get some sort of result against Germany. You maybe try to pounce on an Australia team that mentally doesn't seem like they are in it at this moment. And you've got a good road to the medal rounds. So I think this was a good start. I think they still have room to grow. I think that's probably exactly where Hayes would like them to be. Fingers crossed for Sophia Smith, but this is, I think, the start the United States wanted. There was another whole slate of results today. Brazil earned a win over Nigeria. Like I said, Germany got a win over Australia. France got a win over Colombia. Canada got a win over New Zealand, and Spain got a win over Japan. Spain looked really, really, really good. So some of the early predictions holding. I don't think anybody got a result today that was not kind of expected to, with different degrees of excitement sort of on how every different team is playing. So a really fun first day. Can't wait for more this weekend, and you'll be getting more from us soon. So thanks y'all for hanging out. Quick little recap of what we saw in the first day of soccer games. This has been the Late Sub, and we will be back with our usual programming at the beginning of next week.